you mentioned DuckStation. I don't believe there's a DuckStation core for RetroArch, and I would 100% recommend DuckStation for PlayStation, which is obviously standalone. PCSX2 is another standalone emulator. So I guess the answer is probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes I use RetroArch because it is, once you've set it up and you've dialed it in, it's great. Like it does exactly what I want it to do. But sometimes if you want to kind of get a little bit more, if you want to do the texture packs, the HD texture packs, or if you want specific modding enhancements or patches, like, for like DuckStation or for PlayStation 2, you can get various like widescreen patches, you can get various frame rate enhancement patches, things like that, right? So I think honestly, it's really about doing a little bit of both, and in general, I would say anything kind of 32 bits and higher, I would, generally speaking, lean towards a individual emulator. Anything kind of lower than that, RetroArch will get the job done for you.
Yeah, I in terms of emulation, I gotta be honest with you, it's like modding, it's an absolute minefield that terrifies me, and I think to a lot of people that don't zone in on it, and they're like, this is something that I'm going to become good at. It's literally just, you might as well just try teaching them quantum physics. I downloaded one emulator onto my phone or something just because I wanted like to emulate the style of a Game Boy on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I made such an ass of myself. I can't believe that it's something that you're able to master in regards to it. But in regards to emulators, you mentioned earlier kind of ethical considerations in regards to it.
So I think it's a great question, and the way that I always think about this is if the product or if the hardware or the games are no longer available, in that I can't go to a store and purchase them, or I can't go to a digital storefront and purchase them, then I think emulation is fine at that point, right? Like, if I want to play a game that's on the Game Boy Color, which I know on eBay is going to cost me $200, right?
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer for me. Like, I'm gonna just basically emulate that game, right? Where it gets really tricky, and this is the area that I don't really get involved in, it's modern emulation with like Nintendo Switch, right? So we know that obviously Switch emulators exist. Nintendo has tried to get them shut down. I think they have succeeded in some regard, but look, one thing about the emulation community is you cut the head off the Hydra. You've heard this before.
Yeah.
5 other emulators pop up, or various iterations of the same emulators that were shut down appear, and that's what's happening now. Ultimately, I'm not really interested in emulating Nintendo Switch games because it doesn't really benefit me in that I still have a Switch and I have the games that I want to play on that system. But if there is a game that I want to play or that I want to check out that does not exist anymore, I can't buy it. Like, I can't get it on GOG. I can't get it on Steam. It's something that the only way that I can play it is via buying a copy on eBay. And you know what that minefield's like with regards to the retro, prices. Emulation is the only way. So that's kind of how I kind of think about things. In that regard. There's
so many IPs out there that it's hard to tell if they're dormant or not, or if they've simply become abandonware. And at the point in which they're no longer being supported by, we will cover in terms of game preservation, like companies like Epic Games shutting down Unreal or something like that.
Yep.
I think once they become at the point where a company is basically saying, we have no interest in continuing this IP, then I think the ethical considerations with emulation go out of the window, and it becomes kind of free reign for everyone. Yes, you are allowed to do this or something. But Nintendo, though, in my opinion, it has everyone running scared because it's Nintendo's going to Nintendo. There are so many people out there, no doubt, that are afraid to approach anything that's Nintendo related, thinking they're just going to get a visit from the lawyers or something. They're so. Do you think that the Switch scene will pick up when Switch One kind of goes out of circulation?
Yeah, it's a good question. The difficulty that I have saying that it will is that there's already some things Nintendo has put into place to kind of stop that from happening, because they've already managed to shut down the two biggest Switch emulators, Yuzu and Ryujinx. And if you look at the documents, you know, the legal documents that have been filed around DMCA and things like that. And by the way, I'm not a lawyer, so you know, don't take my words as anything other than for entertainment value. You know, it's really kind of put the fear of a lot of Switch emulation developers into, like, I think a lot of people are kind of freaking out about, you know, what Nintendo has done. Now, look, that's not to say 5 years from now, is it really going to be a big deal if Switch emulation reappears and reemerges as something that's kind of quite big right now? I don't know, but this is something that, look, Nintendo has always had a very aggressive stance against emulation, right? Like, ever since the N64 days, I can remember that they tried to sue Ultra HLE, which was the original N64 emulator that was playing N64 games back in 1999, right? Very, very similar, parallels, I guess, to the Switch scene right now. But they have never really succeeded in stamping out emulation at all, right? So I think, you know, maybe 5 or so years from now, Switch emulation will be maybe more accepted. Nintendo doesn't really seem to be that interested in their older systems, but I also find that sometimes they do tend to go after, you know, various older emulators, because it seems like they're preparing that stuff for their Nintendo Switch Online service. And I know that I've been back in the day, back in like 20s, I think it was 2018, I did a video about Super Mario 64 running on the Switch, completely unofficial, of course, and they took down the video, and I was like thinking to myself, I wonder if they're going to do something with Super Mario 64, and they did the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, which was like maybe 6-8 months later. So sometimes, you know, that you can tell that they're trying to open or prepare things for what they're trying to bring out later on. But